again, everybody. Welcome back to the Conservative Party conference here in Manchester. And of course, we can't be in God's own city without inviting the Mayor of Greater Manchester. We're honoured to have you here with us. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you, Kay.
Interesting to hear what you think about what the Chancellor had to say this morning about HS2. Here we go.
Well, I'm sorry, Kay, I'm going to disappoint you. I'm not going to go into details. Well, let me tell you this, that in terms of things like the northern leg of HS2, whatever decision we make, we will take very careful note of the need to have proper economic infrastructure throughout the whole country. But in terms of this specific decision, I'm afraid you will have to wait.
No, I'm not. I'm just asking you what would be the benefits of keeping it.
Well, you're trying to draw me on what the decision might be.
That's my job.
It is your job, but it's also my job to say that we will make the announcement.
It's your job not to answer the question.
No, it's my job to say we'll make the announcement at the appropriate time, and I promise you we will.
I think that's a no, Mr. Burnham.
I think it sounds like one, doesn't it? It feels so wrong, this, to me. You know, the Conservative Party are in a city that is thriving in many ways. You know, it's changed since they were last here 2 years ago. It's grown upwards into the sky. We've got a new public transport system. We're growing faster here than the UK economy. And what do? They pull the rug from under us. It just feels wrong to me that conversations are going on here in our city and we're shut out of them. Myself and the leader of Manchester City Council, we've had no involvement at all in this. And this is a decision of epic proportions for the north of England for the rest of this century. If they do pull the plug, they will basically be saying that the northern economy will be smaller in this century than it might otherwise have been. And the stakes couldn't be higher. And yet here we are. It feels like they've made a decision. They're not prepared to say it while they're here in Manchester, but they'll sort of announce it when they leave. Just all feels wrong to me.
Have you tried to reach out to the Prime Minister while he's here?
I wrote to him a week ago today, and I said, at least give us the courtesy of a meeting. Let us say to you why we think it's important. And the reason why we say it's important is because it lays the foundations for the east-west line across the north of England. So you can't separate HS2 from that. And we also said to him we'd be prepared to have a conversation about rephasing. So maybe we look first at building in the north. So we said we're open to a conversation about all these things, but don't scrap it. Don't just scrap HS2, because you're really going to leave the north of England with Victorian rail infrastructure for the rest of this century, while the southern half of the country, or the southeastern half of the country, would have modern lines north, south, east, west.
What did he say?
Well, we've had no reply, and that's why I say it feels wrong.
What about the Chancellor? Have you written to him?
Not to the Chancellor.
What would you say to the Chancellor?
I would say to the Chancellor is you cannot have growth without the infrastructure to support it. I know that Manchester Piccadilly would be the heart of a resurgent north of England if we got the right HS2 station there. That would be the way that you really build growth in the economic growth in the English regions. If you pull away that investment, the investors themselves will start to drift away, and that's why the stakes for us couldn't be higher. And here Sky were reporting last night, Sam Coates, that there's emergency cabinet meetings going on about this. When will we get a chance to have our say? They were elected on a promise to level up the north of England, but they're treating people in the north of England as second-class citizens when it comes to transport, and it really isn't right.
How offended are you that the Prime Minister didn't even reply?
I don't think it is a good look. I mean, in some ways, am I welcome? Yeah, I feel pretty welcome here at the Conservative Conference. I feel it's right when people are in the city that I come in and speak to people while they're here. But I would expect that the Prime Minister might speak to us, given that he's about to take a decision that will determine the fate of our railways for the rest of this century.
Not even reply to your letter?
I'm not aware that we've had a reply to the letter. I don't want to be unfair, but I would just make an appeal to him today. Before you take any decision, really, you should speak to leaders in the north of England, just to understand why we feel so strongly about this. You can't kind of scatter funding out to a few favoured towns and say that is levelling up. That isn't levelling up. You can only level up with strategic infrastructure that is then the foundation for economic growth. And I'm afraid, the government feels like it is claiming at this conference to be saying, oh, long-term decisions for a brighter future. It feels to me that they're doing exactly the opposite. They're turning their back on those long-term decisions, turning their back on the infrastructure we need to take this country forward, turning their back on net zero, turning their back on public transport and prioritising the car. That feels to me like fairly grubby short-term decisions from desperate moves by a dying government. And I want him to convince me otherwise. But as it stands this Monday morning, we just feel shut out from something that will really have a big impact on the fate of the North.
Just seen Therese Coffey walk past as we're chatting. She's got a smile on her face. What are you picking up, the mood here?
Well, it feels to me quite a kind of strange mood, if I'm honest. I don't feel there's a sort of energy around the place. But I mean, as I say, I'm hoping to be proven wrong. I'm here and we're reaching out. I think the key for me would be, what is the future of levelling up? They're here in Manchester, of all places, Manchester. They made promises to us here. If this conference doesn't sort of really give us something to feel that, OK, we can work with that, then really what is the point of this government? And
of course, Labour in the Northwest as well next week in Liverpool. It is certainly where both parties feel that the mood is at the moment and where they need to try to convince people to vote either way. It is a deprived part of the country as well, though, and a lot of kids need free school meals, is what we're being told by the Teachers' Union, and they think that the government should pay for it. In London, of course, it's the mayor that pays for free school meals. Is that something you'll look at here in Manchester?
Well, in an ideal world, it's something I would like to do, but we don't have the same funds to be able to do that. We are reforming our public transport, and so I've taken a big decision to put buses back under public control. We've created the B network. It's live now in your all part of the world.
Wigan, let's just pause for a minute. Wigan, good morning, Wiganers, if you're watching this morning.
Good morning to Lee, the Lee half as well.
There we go, absolutely.
But the B
Although our rugby
running
team's better, just saying.
In Bolton and Salford and Bury, and the buses built in Britain. That is our priority at the moment, because we're cutting the cost of public transport to benefit everybody and connect people to opportunity. I don't have the funds to be able to prioritise other things than that at the moment. OK.
What is the biggest issue for the people of the North West going into the next election?
I think it's a big question about the way the country is run. Bear in mind now, we've had 3 general elections where we've been given big promises about the North will be levelled up. We will change things for you. And what it looks like to people here is it's basically been, a broken promise. And it looks like Whitehall is incapable of levelling up the North. It doesn't want to level up the North. So the gap between all of those kind of statements, that rhetoric, and the reality as we experience it is actually getting quite big. And I kind of feel people are kind of very disenfranchised with the government. And I think that is kind of spilling over into a sort of distrust, really, and that's why in Liverpool next week I will be saying to Labour there's an opportunity here to really kind of put some detail behind that plan to do true levelling up of the North. Yeah,
but the Labour Party won't. Every time I speak to a shadow minister, they won't confirm that they'll keep HS2.
Well, we'll see next week, won't we? We'll see what comes out of Labour in Liverpool. But I think voters in the North at the moment are, when I say things like we're being treated as second-class citizens, I think whether people agree with HS2 or not, actually they agree with that. They really feel this at the moment. If HS2 is built from outer London through the Chilterns and the home counties to the West Midlands, that will be like a kind of statement of where Whitehall cares about and Westminster. And, people, I think, increasingly saying, you know what, we're not having that anymore.